The galaxy had rules. Simple rules. Rules that every species understood and followed without question. Rule number 1 was the most important: never enter human space. For 300 years, this rule had kept the peace. The border zones around human territory were marked with warning beacons that pulsed in every known language. Stay away. Do not approach. This space is claimed. And every species listened. The Krillians, who conquered 12 systems in a single year, stopped at the human border. The Vexari Collective, whose trade routes stretched across half the galaxy, went around human space, adding weeks to their journeys. Even the ancient Thalmec Empire, who remembered the birth of stars, avoided the small cluster of worlds where humans lived. No one knew exactly why. There were stories, of course. Whispers in the dark corners of space stations. Tales told by old traders who had seen too much. Some said humans were monsters who ate their enemies. Others claimed they had weapons that could destroy suns. A few believed humans were actually peaceful but pretended to be dangerous to keep others away. But nobody really knew the truth. Because nobody had ever crossed the border and returned to tell about it. Until today. Captain Xirax of the merchant vessel Golden Path was desperate. His ship carried medical supplies for a colony dying from plague. The fastest route would save 10,000 lives. That route cut straight through human space. He stared at his navigation screen and made a choice. The Golden Path crossed the border at 0300 hours, Galactic Standard Time. Xirax expected alarms. He expected warning shots. He expected something. Instead, there was silence. His ship glided through the darkness, passing asteroid fields and empty planets. Nothing happened. His crew began to relax. Perhaps the stories were just stories. Perhaps humans were gone, extinct, vanished into history. Perhaps the warnings were from a time long past when humans actually existed, but now there was only empty space and old legends. They traveled for 6 hours without incident. Then the proximity alarm screamed. Something was coming. Something fast. Xirax looked at his scanner and his blood turned cold. A ship had appeared behind them. Not beside them. Not in front. Behind them, as if it had been following them the entire time, invisible, waiting. The human ship was smaller than the Golden Path. Much smaller. It looked old and damaged, with hull plating that did not match and engines that burned with an odd blue light. It should not have been threatening. But Xirax felt fear crawl up his spine anyway. A voice crackled over the communication system. It spoke in perfect Krillian, Xirax's native language. "This is Commander Sarah Chen of the Earth Defense Fleet. You have entered restricted territory. State your purpose." Xirax's hands shook as he activated his transmitter. "We are a medical transport. We carry supplies for dying colonies. We meant no harm. We only need to pass through." There was a long pause. Then the human voice spoke again, colder this time. "You were warned. Every ship in the galaxy knows these borders. You chose to ignore them." Xirax looked at his cargo manifest. 10,000 lives depended on his delivery. "Please," he said. "People are dying. We will lose weeks if we go around. We need these supplies now." Another pause. Then something happened that Xirax did not expect. The human ship moved closer. Not to attack. To scan. A beam of light swept over the Golden Path, analyzing everything, reading every system, every cargo container, every piece of data. When it finished, the human voice returned. "Your cargo is verified. Medical supplies, food, water purification systems. Nothing military. Nothing dangerous." Xirax felt hope rise in his chest. "Then you will let us pass?" "No," the human said. "We will escort you. Your ship is slow and your navigation system is outdated. If you continue on your current course, you will hit an unmarked debris field in 4 hours. Your ship will be destroyed. We will guide you through the safest route. You will reach your destination in half the time." Xirax could not believe what he was hearing. "You would help us? After we violated your territory?" The human was quiet for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice was softer. "We are not monsters, Captain. We guard our borders because we must. But we do not let innocent people die when we can prevent it. Follow our course heading. Stay close. Do not deviate. Understood. Understood, Zirax whispered. The human ship took position ahead of them. For the next 8 hours, it guided the golden path through human space. It showed them shortcuts that were not on any map. It warned them of hazards that no scanner could detect. It moved with a grace and precision that seemed impossible for such an old vessel. Zirax watched in amazement. This was not the behavior of monsters. This was not the action of a species that wanted to be feared. This was something else entirely. As they approached the far border of human space, Zirax activated his communicator one last time. Commander Chen, why does everyone fear your people? Why does the entire galaxy avoid you? There was a very long silence. Then the human answered, and her words would echo across the stars for years to come. Because 300 years ago, the galaxy tried to conquer us. They sent their fleets and their armies. They thought we were weak because we were young. They thought we would surrender because we were small. They learned otherwise. The galaxy fears us because we taught them to fear us. We did not start that war, Captain, but we finished it. And we made sure no one would ever forget. The golden path crossed the border into safe space. Behind them, the human ship stopped at the exact boundary line. It did not follow. It simply watched them go. Zirax looked back at the small, battered vessel floating in the darkness. Then he did something he had never done before. He bowed toward the screen, a gesture of deep respect in his culture. The human ship's lights blinked once. Then it turned and vanished into the shadows. Zirax continued his journey. The medical supplies reached the colony in time. 10,000 lives were saved. But Zirax could not stop thinking about what he had seen. When he returned to his home station, he told his story. Other captains listened. The story spread. And slowly, carefully, the galaxy began to ask a question they had been too afraid to ask for 3 centuries. What really happened during that war? What did humans do that made an entire galaxy fear them? The answers would change everything. The Galactic Council met in the Tower of Unity, a massive station that floated in neutral space between 5 major empires. The Council had existed for 50,000 years. It had seen the rise and fall of 100 civilizations. It had prevented countless wars and brokered peace across millions of worlds. But today, the Council faced something they had not dealt with in 3 centuries. A question about humans. Ambassador Kelrith of the Vexry Collective stood before the assembled delegates. He was old, even by Vexry standards. His scales had turned silver with age and his eyes held the wisdom of 1,200 years. He had been there. He had seen the human war. He had voted to start it. I know why you have called this session, Kelrith said. His voice carried to every corner of the chamber. A merchant ship crossed human borders. The humans let them pass. Some of you believe this means humans have changed. Some of you believe we should open diplomatic relations. Some of you believe the old fears are no longer justified. He paused and looked around the room. Every species was represented. The Krillians with their 4 arms and crystalline armor. The Thalmec with their floating bodies and telepathic speech. The Zorvati with their insect features and hive minds. Hundreds of species, thousands of representatives, all waiting for his words. You are all wrong, Kelrith continued. Humans have not changed. They are exactly what they have always been. And that is why we must never forget what happened 300 years ago. The chamber fell silent. Even the youngest delegates knew the stories. But stories fade. Details are lost. Truth becomes legend. Kelrith decided it was time to remind them. 300 years ago, humans were new to space. They had barely reached their own moon when we discovered them. They had no faster than light travel. They had no energy shields. They had no knowledge of the greater galaxy. By every measure, they were primitives. The Council at that time made a decision. Humans would be integrated into galactic society. They would be given technology, guidance, and protection. In exchange, they would serve. It was standard procedure. Every new species went through the same process. It had worked 10,000 times before. Kelritha's voice grew darker. But humans refused. They said they would not be servants. They said they would not surrender their freedom. They said they would rather die than kneel. The council laughed. Young species always said such things. They always changed their minds when they saw the fleets. So we sent the fleets. The first integration armada consisted of 5,000 warships. The largest military force assembled in 2,000 years. We expected total victory within a month. The war lasted 5 years. A murmur ran through the chamber. 5 years against a primitive species? How was that possible? Kelrith continued his story, and his voice carried the weight of old nightmares. The first battle took place near Earth's moon. Our ships outnumbered theirs 100 to 1. Our weapons were centuries more advanced. Our commanders had fought in 50 wars. We expected them to surrender after the first volley. Instead, they attacked. The humans had only chemical rockets and primitive missiles. Their ships were made of metal and glass. They should have been destroyed in seconds. But humans did not fight like other species. They did not retreat when they were losing. They did not protect their command ships. They did not follow any tactical doctrine we understood. When their ships were damaged, they turned them into weapons. They crashed them into our vessels at full speed. When their missiles ran out, they used debris as projectiles. When their weapons failed, they rammed us. We destroyed 100 human ships that day. But we lost 12 of our own. Against primitives. Against chemical rockets. We lost 12 ships. The delegates stirred uneasily. 12 ships did not sound like much. But against a species with no real technology, it was impossible. The war continued, Kelrith said. We sent more fleets. We attacked their mining colonies, their space stations, their orbital platforms. We destroyed everything they had built in space. We thought we had won. Then the humans did something we never expected. They started building. Every species builds during war, someone called out from the assembly. That is normal. No, Kelrith said sharply. You do not understand. Humans did not build slowly. They did not build carefully. They built with a speed that should not be possible. In the first year of the war, they had 300 ships. In the second year, they had 3,000. In the third year, they had 30,000. We kept destroying their factories and they kept building more factories. We kept attacking their shipyards and they kept creating new shipyards. We destroyed their orbital infrastructure and they moved their production underground, underwater, into their planet's crust. They built in places we could not reach. And they built fast. Faster than any species we had ever seen. But that was not the worst part. Kelritha's eyes grew distant, remembering. The worst part was how quickly they learned. Humans are adaptable. Every time we used a weapon, they found a defense. Every time we used a tactic, they developed a counter. Every time we thought we understood how they would fight, they changed. In the fourth year, they captured one of our ships. Within 6 months, they had reverse-engineered our faster-than-light drives. Within a year, they had improved them. Their new ships were faster than ours. A Thalmec delegate spoke up, his thoughts projecting into everyone's minds. Surely the council sent more forces. Surely we could have overwhelmed them with numbers. We tried, Kelrith said bitterly. In the 5th year, we assembled the largest fleet in galactic history. 50,000 ships. Every major species contributed. We called it the Final Armada. We were going to end the war once and for all. We were going to show humans what happened to species who defied the council. The chamber was completely silent now. Every eye was on Kelrith. The old ambassador seemed to age another 100 years as he spoke his next words. The Final Armada never reached Earth. The humans met us at the edge of their system. They had 20,000 ships. We still outnumbered them. We still had superior technology. We still thought we would win. The battle lasted 3 days. At the end of those 3 days, The final armada was destroyed. Not defeated. Not driven back. Destroyed. 50,000 ships reduced to debris. 2 million soldiers dead. The greatest military force ever assembled, wiped out by a species that had been in space for less than 50 years. Kelrith looked around the chamber. Some delegates were shaking their heads in disbelief. Others were calculating, wondering if this story was exaggerated. None of them had been there. None of them had seen what he had seen. How? A young Krillian delegate asked. How did they do it? Kelrith smiled, but there was no humor in it. They used our own tactics against us. They studied how we fought. They learned our weaknesses. They found gaps in our formations. They exploited every mistake we made. But more than that, they fought with something we had never encountered before. Desperation. Humans knew they were fighting for their survival. They knew that if they lost, their species would be enslaved for thousands of years. So they fought like creatures with nothing to lose. They sacrificed ships to destroy our command centers. They sent damaged vessels on suicide runs against our flagships. They used asteroids as weapons, pushing them into our formations with gravity drives. They mined space itself, turning entire regions into death traps. And when we adapted to their tactics, they invented new ones. There was a long silence in the chamber. Finally, the High Chancellor spoke. She was a Voxari, ancient and wise. And after this battle, what happened? Kelritha's expression became even darker. After the final armada was destroyed, the council panicked. Some wanted to send everything we had. Others wanted to negotiate. But before we could decide, the humans made the decision for us. They came to us. A single human ship appeared at the edge of council space. It carried no weapons. It requested permission to dock at this very station. The council granted it because we were curious. We wanted to understand what kind of species could do what humans had done. One human stepped off that ship. Her name was Admiral Victoria Kane. She was small and old and scarred from battle. She walked into this chamber and stood where I am standing now. And she gave the council an ultimatum. Kelrith paused. Even after 300 years, the memory was sharp. She said humanity wanted peace. But not peace on our terms. Peace on equal terms. She said humans would never be servants. She said humans would never surrender their worlds. She said humans would fight for 10,000 years if necessary. And then she showed us something that changed everything. She showed us plans. Human plans. Plans for weapons we had never imagined. Antimatter bombs that could destroy planets. Biological weapons that could wipe out entire species. Artificial intelligence that could control fleets without crews. She told us humans had been working on these weapons during the war. She told us humans had not used them yet because they hoped for peace. But if the war continued, if we sent more fleets, if we threatened human survival, they would use everything they had created. They would turn the galaxy into ash before they surrendered. The chamber erupted. Delegates shouted. Some called for immediate action. Others demanded verification. But Kelrith raised his hand and the room fell silent again. The council investigated. The council sent scientists and spies and observers. Everything Admiral Kane said was true. Humans had created weapons that could destroy civilizations. They had been preparing for total war. And they were ready to use those weapons. So the council voted. And for the first time in 50,000 years, the council surrendered. We agreed to human terms. We recognized their borders. We left them alone. Kelrith looked directly at the delegates who had called this session. That is why the galaxy fears humans. Not because of what they did, but because of what they were willing to do. They were ready to burn everything rather than lose their freedom. What other species would make that choice? What other species would risk total destruction rather than compromise? He stepped back from the podium. So when you ask if we should open relations with humans, when you ask if the old fears are still valid, remember this: humans have not changed. They are still the same species that fought 5 empires to a standstill. They are still the species that would rather die than serve. The only difference is now they have 300 more years of technology. Now they are not primitives. Now they are as advanced as we are. Maybe more advanced. And they still guard their borders with the same ferocity they showed during the war. The question is not whether we should fear them. The question is whether we are foolish enough to test them again. The chamber fell into troubled silence. And across the galaxy, the story spread once more. The story of the war. The story of the species that could not be conquered. The story of why no one crossed human borders. Until one merchant ship with dying colonists had no choice. And that single act of mercy from Commander Sarah Chen would slowly begin to change 300 years of fear. Captain Xerax could not stay silent. For 3 days after his journey through human space, he tried to forget what he had seen. He delivered his medical supplies. He saved 10,000 lives. He returned to his home station and attempted to resume his normal routine. But the memory haunted him. The small damaged ship. The calm voice. The precise guidance through dangerous space. The mercy shown to someone who had violated their sacred borders. On the 4th day, he went to the largest trading hub in his sector and told his story. He stood in the center of the market where hundreds of species gathered to buy and sell goods from across the galaxy. He told them about crossing the border. He told them about Commander Sarah Chen. He told them about being helped instead of destroyed. The crowd listened in stunned silence. When he finished, an old Thalmec merchant approached him. His floating form glowed with agitation. "You are lying," the Thalmec said. "Humans do not help trespassers. Humans destroy anyone who enters their space. Everyone knows this." "I saw it with my own eyes," Xerax replied. "I have the navigation logs. I have the recorded communications. The human could have killed me. Instead, she saved me. Why would she do that if humans are the monsters everyone claims?" The Thalmec had no answer. But others in the crowd did. A young Krillian stepped forward. Her name was Thex and she was a history scholar. "I have studied the human war," she said. "I have read every record, every report, every testimony. And I found something interesting. Humans never attacked civilians. Not once in 5 years of war. They destroyed military ships. They fought soldiers. But they never targeted colonies or trade vessels or medical transports. We did. The Council forces killed millions of human civilians. But humans never retaliated against our civilians. Why?" The crowd murmured. This was not part of the common story. The common story said humans were savage warriors who knew only violence. Another voice joined the conversation. This one belonged to a Vexry pilot named Sarath. He was old and scarred and his scales bore marks from a dozen battles. "I fought in the war," Sarath said quietly. "I was there at the Battle of the Outer Rings. My ship was damaged and drifting. I thought I would die. Then a human vessel approached. I prepared for execution. Instead, they gave me supplies and coordinates to the nearest council station. They saved my life. I never told anyone because I was ashamed. How could I explain that the enemy showed me mercy when we showed them none?" More voices rose from the crowd. A merchant who had once traded near human borders spoke of seeing human ships rescue survivors from a spatial anomaly, pulling them from certain death without asking what species they were. A scientist mentioned hearing reports of human medical teams treating plague victims on neutral stations, asking for nothing in return. A transport captain described watching a human patrol ship defend a civilian convoy from pirates, then disappearing without accepting thanks or payment. Each story contradicted the narrative. Each story painted a different picture. Not monsters. Not savages. Something else. Something the galaxy had refused to see. Thex the scholar raised her voice above the growing noise. "I think we have been wrong about humans for 300 years. I think we created a monster in our minds because we could not accept the truth. We could not accept that we tried to enslave a species and they defeated us. So we told ourselves they were dangerous. We told ourselves they were violent. We told ourselves we were right to fear them. But what if we were wrong? What if humans are not our enemies? What if they simply want to be left alone? The old Thalmec merchant shook his glowing form. Even if this is true, it changes nothing. The borders remain closed. Humans do not allow visitors. They do not trade. They do not communicate. They isolated themselves from the galaxy. That is not the action of a peaceful species. Xirax stepped forward again. Perhaps they isolated themselves because we gave them no choice. We declared war on them. We tried to conquer them. We killed millions of their people. And when they won, when they had every right to take revenge, they simply asked to be left alone. Is that not the most peaceful thing they could have done? A new voice entered the conversation. This one came from a communication terminal nearby. It was a live feed from another station, broadcast across the network. The speaker was Ambassador Kelrith himself. "I am watching your discussion," the old Vexary said. His image appeared on screens throughout the market. "I hear your questions. I understand your doubts. So I will tell you something I have not told anyone in 300 years. After the war ended, after we agreed to human terms, Admiral Victoria Kane gave me a private message. She asked me to deliver it to the Council. I never did. I was too afraid of what it might mean." Kelritha's ancient eyes showed something that might have been regret. "Admiral Kane told me this. Humans do not hate you. We understand why you did what you did. You believed you were bringing order to chaos. You believed you were helping primitive species advance. You believed your way was the only way. But you were wrong. There is no one way for intelligent life to exist. Every species must find their own path. We want to find ours alone. Not because we hate you, but because we need to discover who we are without outside interference. Perhaps someday, when we are ready, we will open our borders. But that day must come from us, not from you. Give us time. Give us space. Give us the respect you would want if your positions were reversed." The market had gone completely silent. Every being present was listening to Kelritha's words. The old ambassador continued. "I did not share this message because I thought it was a lie. I thought it was manipulation. I thought humans were simply too weak to continue fighting and needed time to recover. But now, 300 years later, I wonder if I was wrong. I wonder if Admiral Kane was telling the truth. I wonder if we have wasted centuries fearing a species that only wanted peace." Kelritha's image looked directly at Xirax. "Captain, you crossed their borders. You violated their most sacred rule. And they helped you anyway. That tells me something important. It tells me humans still follow the principles Admiral Kane spoke of. They do not hate us. They simply want to be left alone. Perhaps it is time we respected that wish." The transmission ended. The market remained quiet for a long moment. Then, slowly, beings began to talk. Not arguing. Not debating. Simply sharing. Sharing stories they had kept hidden. Sharing doubts they had never voiced. Sharing a growing realization that everything they thought they knew might be incomplete. The conversation in that market spread. Within days, similar discussions were happening on 100 stations. Within weeks, the entire galaxy was asking questions. Within months, something remarkable began to happen. Ships stopped avoiding human borders out of fear. Instead, they gave the borders respect. The difference was subtle but important. Fear makes you hostile. Respect makes you careful. Trading routes that had gone around human space for centuries began to pass closer to the borders. Not crossing them, but no longer treating them like zones of death. Pirates and raiders who had once hidden near human territory, knowing no one would chase them there, suddenly found themselves exposed. Several pirate fleets were destroyed by council patrols that no longer feared to operate near human space. The irony was not lost on anyone. Humans had made the space around their borders safer simply by existing. And then something happened that no one expected. A human ship left their territory. It was the first time in 300 years that a human vessel had crossed the border by choice. The ship was small and unarmed. It broadcast a simple message on all frequencies. "This is the diplomatic vessel Unity. We come in peace. We wish to speak with the Galactic Council." The galaxy held its breath. The council debated for 3 days. Some members wanted to refuse. Others wanted to set conditions. But in the end, they agreed. The Unity was granted permission to dock at the Tower of Unity. Ambassador Kelrith himself went to meet them. He stood at the airlock, flanked by guards, waiting for the door to open. He did not know what to expect. Perhaps Admiral Kane herself, ancient and bitter. Perhaps a warrior come to issue new demands. Perhaps a delegation of stern-faced soldiers ready for confrontation. The door opened. A young woman stepped out. She was perhaps 30 years old by human standards. She wore a simple uniform with no weapons and no armor. Her hair was tied back and her eyes were bright with curiosity and nervousness. She saw Kelrith and smiled. "Hello," she said in perfect Vexery. "My name is Ambassador Lisa Park. I am here on behalf of the United Earth Government. We have been watching the galaxy for 300 years. We have seen the conversations. We have heard the questions. We believe it is time to talk." Kelrith stared at her. This was not what he expected. "Where is Admiral Kane?" he asked. "She died 200 years ago," Ambassador Park said gently. "She lived to be very old by human standards. Before she died, she left instructions. She said when the galaxy was ready to see us as equals rather than threats, we should reach out. She said we would know when that time came. She said one day, someone would cross our borders not out of aggression but out of desperation. And we would help them. And that act of mercy would begin to change minds." Kelrith felt something break inside him. 300 years of guilt and fear and regret. Admiral Kane had predicted this. She had known it would happen. She had prepared for it. The humans had been waiting. Waiting for the galaxy to change. Waiting for the fear to fade. Waiting for respect to replace hatred. The old Vexery ambassador looked at the young human and saw the future. A future where humans and the rest of the galaxy might finally talk as equals. A future where old wounds might begin to heal. A future that started with one merchant ship, one act of mercy, and 3 centuries of patience. "Welcome, Ambassador Park," Kelrith said. His voice was thick with emotion. "Welcome to the Tower of Unity. Let us begin." The council chamber had never been so full. Every species sent their highest representatives. Every government wanted to witness this moment. The first official contact with humanity in 300 years. Ambassador Lisa Park stood in the center of the chamber, alone. She had refused guards. She had refused weapons. She wore only her simple uniform and carried only a data tablet. Around her, thousands of eyes watched from hundreds of species. Some looked curious. Some looked afraid. Some looked angry. She could feel the weight of 3 centuries pressing down on her. Ambassador Kelrith stood beside her. He had insisted on personally introducing her to the council. It was his way of showing support, of telling the galaxy that he believed this moment was important. The High Chancellor called the session to order. Her voice echoed through the vast space. "Ambassador Park, you have requested this audience. You claim to speak for humanity. The Council recognizes you. Please state your purpose." Lisa took a deep breath. She had practiced this speech 1,000 times. But now, standing here, all her prepared words felt wrong. So she spoke from her heart instead. 300 years ago, my people fought a war we did not start. We were new to space. We were excited to meet other species. We dreamed of friendship and cooperation and learning from civilizations older than ours. Instead, we were told to surrender. We were told to serve. We were told our freedom meant nothing compared to galactic order. She paused and looked around the chamber. So we fought. Not because we wanted war. Not because we hated you. But because we believed freedom was worth dying for. We believed no species had the right to take our choices away. We believed we deserved the same respect you gave each other. A Krillian delegate stood up, his crystalline armor clicking. You killed 2 million council soldiers. You destroyed the greatest fleet ever assembled. You threatened to use weapons of mass destruction. This is not the behavior of victims seeking freedom. This is the behavior of dangerous aggressors. Lisa met his eyes steadily. You are right. We killed 2 million of your soldiers. Do you know how many humans died in that war? The chamber went quiet. 7 million, Lisa said. Her voice was calm but hard. 7 million civilians killed in orbital bombardments. 3 million soldiers killed defending our worlds. 10 million total deaths. Your fleets targeted our cities. Your weapons burned our colonies. Your ships destroyed civilian transports trying to evacuate children to safety. The Krillian delegate sat down slowly. We fought back, Lisa continued. Yes, we fought with everything we had. We learned your technology. We adapted your tactics. We created weapons that terrified you. But we never used those weapons of mass destruction. We never targeted your civilian populations. We never did to you what you did to us. Why not? A Thalmec delegate projected her thoughts into the chamber. You had the weapons. You had the justification. Revenge would have been understandable. Why show restraint? Because, Lisa said simply, we did not want to become what you feared we were. We did not want to prove that might makes right. We did not want to teach the galaxy that the strongest species gets to dominate everyone else. If we had used those weapons, if we had killed your civilians, we would have been no different from the forces that attacked us. And that would have meant you won. Not militarily, but morally. You would have turned us into monsters. Ambassador Kelrith spoke up. His voice was thoughtful. During the war, I believed humans were holding back because they were weak. I believed your restraint was a tactical choice, not a moral one. Was I wrong? Yes, Lisa said. And no. We were weaker than you militarily. That is true. But our restraint was not about weakness. It was about who we wanted to be. Humans have a long history of war. We fought each other for thousands of years before we reached space. We learned hard lessons about violence and revenge and escalation. We learned that winning a war means nothing if you lose yourself in the process. She walked to the center of the chamber, making sure everyone could see her. Admiral Kane, who led our forces during the war, used to say something. She said the galaxy would judge humanity not by how we fought, but by how we won. She said if we survived, we needed to survive as something worth being. So even when we were losing, even when millions of our people were dying, we maintained rules. We did not torture prisoners. We did not execute civilians. We did not use weapons that would cause unnecessary suffering. And when we started winning, when we had the power to take revenge, we chose peace instead. A young Vexery delegate stood. Her scales were bright with youth and skepticism. Beautiful words, Ambassador. But words are easy. You isolated yourselves for 300 years. You refused all contact. You threatened anyone who approached your borders. How is that choosing peace? Lisa smiled sadly. Imagine you are in a room with someone who tried to kill you. They failed, but they are still stronger than you. They still have weapons. They still believe they had the right to attack you. Would you trust them? Would you open your door to them? Would you invite them to dinner? The young Vexery was quiet. We isolated ourselves because we needed time, Lisa continued. Time to heal. Time to rebuild. Time to decide who we wanted to be without outside pressure. And time for the galaxy to change. We knew that if we opened our borders immediately after the war, there would be more conflict. Some species would see it as weakness and attack. Others would try to infiltrate and control us through subtler means. We needed to wait until the galaxy was ready to see us as equals. So we waited. And we watched. And we listened. The High Chancellor leaned forward. What did you see during those 300 years? We saw the galaxy continue as it always had, Lisa said. We saw the Council integrate 40 new species. We watched how it was done. Some species were offered genuine partnership. Others were given the same choice we were given, serve or be destroyed. We saw that the Council treated different species differently based on their strength. The powerful were respected. The weak were subjugated. And we saw something else. We saw that the galaxy had learned nothing from our war. The chamber erupted. Delegates shouted denials. The High Chancellor called for order. But Lisa raised her voice above the chaos. You are doing the same thing you did to us. Right now, in the outer reaches, the Council is integrating the Pelthak species. They are being offered membership on the same terms we were offered. Serve for 10,000 years and maybe you will earn freedom. The Pelthak do not have the military strength to resist. They do not have the technology to fight back. So they will surrender. And in 10,000 years, they will be so integrated into your system that they will never remember what freedom meant. The chamber fell silent. The accusation hung in the air like poison. The High Chancellor's face was unreadable. You speak of things you should not know. Our integration policies are confidential. We have been monitoring your communications for 300 years, Lisa said bluntly. We have ships at your borders. We have listening posts throughout the galaxy. We know everything that happens in Council space. We had to. We needed to know if you were preparing to attack us again. The revelation sent shock waves through the chamber. Humans had been spying on them for centuries. Humans had technology they did not know about. Humans had capabilities beyond what anyone suspected. A Zorvati delegate stood, his insect features clicking with agitation. This is an act of war. Espionage, surveillance, violation of sovereignty. You condemn us for our actions, yet you spy on us? Lisa nodded calmly. Yes. We do. Because we learned something important during the war. Trust must be earned, not assumed. You attacked us once. We needed to make sure you would not do it again. If that makes us paranoid, so be it. We survived because we were paranoid. But here is the thing you need to understand. She looked around the chamber, making eye contact with as many delegates as possible. In 300 years of surveillance, in 300 years of watching your fleets and monitoring your communications, we never once attacked you. We never sabotaged your ships. We never assassinated your leaders. We never interfered with your internal politics. We simply watched. And waited. And prepared. We could have struck at any time. We knew your weaknesses. We knew your fleet positions. We knew your defensive gaps. We could have hurt you badly if we wanted revenge. But we did not want revenge. We wanted peace. We just needed to wait until you were ready for it. Ambassador Kelrith spoke again. His voice was heavy with the weight of centuries. What changed? Why now? Why come to us after 300 years? Lisa turned to him. A merchant ship crossed our borders. Captain Xerax was carrying medical supplies to dying colonists. He violated our most sacred boundary. By all our laws, we should have destroyed his ship. But Commander Sarah Chen made a different choice. She helped him. She guided him through our space. She saved him time and saved those colonists. Kelrith nodded slowly. I heard about this incident. It caused quite a stir. It did more than that, Lisa said. It reminded us of something important. It reminded us that the galaxy is not just the Council. It is individuals. People like Captain Xerax who risk everything to save others. People like Commander Chen who choose mercy over protocol. People like you, Ambassador Kelrith, who are willing to question 300 years of policy. She smiled. Admiral Kane always said the galaxy would change when individuals started making different choices. She said institutions move slowly, but people can change quickly. She said when we saw enough people questioning the old narrative, when we saw enough acts of courage and mercy and doubt, we would know it was time. That time is now. The High Chancellor stood. Her presence commanded immediate silence. Ambassador Park, you have spoken of our failures. You have accused us of repeating past mistakes. You have revealed that you have been spying on us for centuries. Yet you claim to come in peace. What exactly do you want from this council? Lisa took a deep breath. This was the moment everything had been building toward. We want to propose a new model. Not integration. Not subjugation. Not isolation. Something different. True partnership between equals. We want to help the Pelthac species. We want to offer them technology and support so they can negotiate with you from a position of strength rather than weakness. We want to establish trade relationships based on mutual benefit, not exploitation. And we want to share something with you. She activated her data tablet. A holographic display appeared above her head showing star charts, technology schematics, scientific data. This is 300 years of human advancement. New engine designs. Medical breakthroughs. Agricultural techniques. Energy solutions. We developed all of this in isolation. And now we want to share it. Not sell it. Not trade it for concessions. Share it freely. The chamber erupted again. This time with confusion rather than anger. Species did not give away technology. It was their greatest asset, their source of power and wealth. Why would humans do this? Because, Lisa said loudly, we want to change the rules of the game. We want to prove that species can help each other without domination. We want to show that cooperation is stronger than conquest. We want to build a galaxy where new species are welcomed as partners, not subjugated as servants. She looked directly at the High Chancellor. You can refuse. You can tell us to leave. You can continue as you always have. But the galaxy is changing whether you like it or not. Captain Xerax told his story. Others are telling theirs. The old narrative is cracking. Soon, every species will be asking the same questions. Why do we fear humans? Why do we accept the integration system? Why do we allow the strong to dominate the weak? You can either lead that change or be swept away by it. The chamber fell into a profound silence. Every delegate was thinking the same thing. Humanity had just changed everything. Not with weapons. Not with threats. But with an offer no one expected. Ambassador Kelrith looked at Lisa Park and saw something he had not seen in 3 centuries. He saw hope. The council debated for 7 days. 7 days of arguments and accusations and fears laid bare. 7 days of species confronting truths they had ignored for millennia. 7 days that would reshape the galaxy. Ambassador Lisa Park waited patiently. She stayed in her quarters on the Tower of Unity and did not push. She had delivered her message. Now the galaxy had to decide what to do with it. On the morning of the 8th day, she was summoned back to the council chamber. The atmosphere was different now. The hostility had faded, replaced by something more complex. Uncertainty, curiosity, fear of change, but also fear of staying the same. The High Chancellor spoke first. Her voice was measured and careful. Ambassador Park, the Council has reviewed your proposal. We have consulted with our governments. We have examined the technology you offered to share. We have debated the philosophical implications of your suggestions. And we have reached several conclusions. Lisa stood straight, her heart pounding. She had no idea what was coming. First, the High Chancellor continued, we acknowledge that the integration system has flaws. It was designed millennia ago for a different galaxy. Perhaps it is time to reconsider how we welcome new species into our community. A murmur of surprise ran through the chamber. The High Chancellor was admitting imperfection. That was unprecedented. Second, we accept your offer to share technology. However, we propose an exchange rather than charity. We will share our knowledge with you as well. True partnership, as you said, must be mutual. Lisa felt relief wash through her. They were listening. They were actually listening. Third, the Chancellor said, and her voice became harder, we cannot simply abandon 300 years of policy based on one speech and some shared technology. Trust must be rebuilt slowly. We propose a trial period. Humanity will work with the Council on integrating the Pelthac species using your proposed model. If it succeeds, we will apply this model to future integrations. If it fails, we return to established procedures. Lisa considered this carefully. It was not everything she hoped for, but it was more than she expected. The Council was willing to try. That was enough. On behalf of humanity, I accept these terms, Lisa said. When do we begin? Immediately, the Chancellor replied. A delegation will depart for Pelthak space within the week. You will join them. Ambassador Kelrith will lead the delegation. He has experience with both the old ways and, it seems, an open mind for new approaches. Kelrith bowed his head in acknowledgement. Lisa felt gratitude toward the old Vexary. He had been instrumental in making this happen. But there is one more matter, the Chancellor continued. Her eyes fixed on Lisa with uncomfortable intensity. You admitted to spying on us for 300 years. You violated our sovereignty. You gathered intelligence on our military capabilities. These are acts we cannot ignore. The chamber tensed. This was the moment many had been waiting for. The moment humanity would be punished for their transgressions. Lisa met the Chancellor's gaze without flinching. Yes, we did. And we will continue to do so until we are certain another attack will not come. We will not make ourselves vulnerable again. We learned that lesson in blood. What we will do, however, is be transparent about it going forward. We will not hide our monitoring. We will tell you what we are watching and why. And we invite you to do the same with us. Monitor our space. Watch our fleets. Verify that we are keeping our promises. True trust requires transparency, not blind faith. The Chancellor was quiet for a long moment. Then, surprisingly, she laughed. It was a sound few had ever heard from her. You are either very brave or very foolish, Ambassador Park. Perhaps both. Very well. We will accept this mutual surveillance. But know this. If we discover you are using this intelligence to harm Council species, there will be consequences. Understood, Lisa said. The same applies to you. The deal was struck. Not perfect. Not complete. But real. A genuine step toward something new. The delegation to Pelthak space departed 6 days later. It consisted of 20 ships from various Council species, 3 human vessels, and enough diplomats to fill a small station. Ambassador Kelrith and Ambassador Park stood together on the bridge of the flagship as they prepared to enter faster than light travel. Kelrith looked at the young human with something approaching fondness. Tell me, he said quietly, did Admiral Kane really predict all of this? Lisa smiled. Not exactly. She predicted that the galaxy would eventually be ready to change. She predicted that individual acts of kindness would begin to shift perceptions. But she did not know when it would happen or how. She just trusted that humans would recognize the moment when it came. And did you recognize the moment? Lisa nodded. When Captain Xerax told his story, when people started questioning the narrative, when you shared Admiral Kane's message, I knew. The galaxy was asking the right questions. It was time to provide some answers. They traveled in silence for a while. Then Kelrith asked the question that had been bothering him. Why share your technology freely? You could have used it as leverage. You could have demanded concessions and treaties and protections. Instead, you give it away. What do humans gain? Lisa looked out at the stars streaming past. We gain something more valuable than power or wealth. We gain the possibility of a future where species help each other because it is right, not because they are forced to. We gain allies instead of subjects. We gain trust instead of fear. She turned to Kelrith. My species almost destroyed itself before we reached space. We fought terrible wars. We created weapons that could end all life on our planet. We stood on the edge of extinction and looked into the abyss. What saved us was not superior weapons or stronger governments. What saved us was people choosing cooperation over competition. People deciding that our common humanity mattered more than our differences. We learned that lesson the hard way. Now we want to share it with the galaxy. Kelrith was quiet for a long time. Finally, he said, you are either the wisest species I have ever met or the most naive. I am not sure which. Maybe both, Lisa said with a smile. The Pelthak homeworld was a blue and green jewel in a system of 7 planets. The Pelthak themselves were a peaceful species, large and slow-moving with thick grey skin and thoughtful eyes. They had reached space only 50 years ago. They had developed basic warp drives and established colonies on 2 neighboring worlds. They had sent out greetings to the galaxy hoping for friendship. The Council had responded with an integration offer. The Pelthak leaders had been debating it for months. They knew what it meant. 10,000 years of service. 10,000 years of building council projects and following council laws and hoping that eventually they would earn their freedom. But what choice did they have? They were weak and alone, and the galaxy was vast and dangerous. Then the delegation arrived. Not just council ships, but human ships too. And the message they carried was different from anything the Pelthak expected. The meeting took place in the Pelthak capital city. The architecture was beautiful, all flowing curves and living gardens integrated into the buildings. The Pelthak valued harmony with nature. It was evident in everything they created. Ambassador Park addressed the Pelthak assembly. She spoke plainly and honestly. You have been offered integration into the Galactic Council. This offer comes with terms. You will serve for 10,000 years. You will give up your autonomy. You will build what the Council asks you to build and go where the Council asks you to go. In exchange, you receive protection and technology and access to galactic trade. The Pelthak leaders nodded slowly. They knew all this already. But today, Lisa continued, I am here to offer you a different choice. The Council has agreed to try a new approach. An approach based on partnership instead of servitude. Here is what we propose. You will join the Council as equal members immediately. Not in 10,000 years. Now. You will have full voting rights. You will have representatives in the Council chamber. You will have sovereignty over your own worlds and colonies. In exchange, you will contribute to the galactic community in ways that match your capabilities. You will share your knowledge and culture. You will participate in joint projects. You will help defend Council space from external threats. But you will do all of this as partners, not servants. The Pelthak assembly erupted in confused discussion. This seemed too good to be true. What was the catch? One of the senior Pelthak leaders, a matriarch named Kaluna, raised her massive hand for silence. Why? She asked simply. Why offer us this when you could demand our service? Because we learned something important, Lisa said. Strong communities are not built on domination. They are built on mutual respect. A servant who is forced to work will do the minimum required. A partner who chooses to work will give their best. We believe you will contribute more to the galaxy as free beings than you ever would as servants. Ambassador Kelrith stepped forward. He had been quiet until now, but his voice carried the weight of centuries. I fought in the war against humanity. I saw what happens when the strong try to dominate the weak. Humans taught us that some species will burn the galaxy down rather than surrender their freedom. The Pelthak are not warriors like humans. You are philosophers and artists and builders. But you deserve the same respect humans demanded. The Council has finally learned this lesson. We should have learned it centuries ago. Kaluna looked between the human and the Vexary. And if we refuse both offers? If we choose to remain independent entirely? Then you remain independent, Lisa said simply. We will not force you to join us. We will offer trade relationships and cultural exchanges and mutual defense agreements if you want them. But the choice is yours. That is the fundamental principle. Every species has the right to determine their own future. The Pelthak debated for 3 days. In the end, they chose partnership. Not because they feared the alternative, but because they believed in the vision Lisa had presented. The integration ceremony was unlike any the galaxy had seen before. No grand proclamations of loyalty. No oaths of service. Simply a mutual agreement signed by equals. The Pelthak joined the Council with full rights and full dignity. And across the galaxy, other species watched. They saw the Pelthak treated as partners. They saw humans sharing technology freely. They saw the Council adapting to new ideas. They saw possibility. Within a year, 17 other species requested the new integration model. Within 5 years, the old model was officially retired. Within a generation, the galaxy had transformed. Not through war. Not through conquest. But through the simple radical idea that different species could work together as equals. Ambassador Lisa Park stood on the observation deck of the Tower of Unity 30 years after her first visit. She was older now, with grey in her hair and lines around her eyes. But her spirit was unchanged. Ambassador Kelrith joined her. He was ancient now, even by Vexary standards. His scales had turned almost white and his movements were slow. But his mind was sharp. "We did it," he said quietly. "We actually changed the galaxy." "Not us," Lisa replied. "Individuals did it. Captain Xerax who told his story. Commander Chen who chose mercy. You who questioned the old ways. Admiral Kane who had faith that change would come. Thousands of small choices by thousands of beings. That is what changed the galaxy." Kelrith made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Humans and your philosophy. You make it sound so simple." "It is simple," Lisa said. "Not easy, but simple. Treat others with respect. Choose cooperation over domination. Believe that a better future is possible and work toward it. Every species understands these principles. The hard part is actually living by them." They stood in comfortable silence, watching the ships come and go from the station. Human ships, Vexary ships, Pelthac ships, vessels from 100 different species, all working together. Far below, on Earth, children learned about the war in history classes. They learned about the 5 years of fighting and the 300 years of isolation and the moment when everything changed. But they also learned about the future their parents and grandparents had built. A future where species explored the galaxy together. Where different cultures shared their knowledge and celebrated their differences. Where conflicts were resolved through discussion rather than weapons. Where the strong protected the weak instead of exploiting them. It was not a perfect future. There were still disagreements and problems and challenges. But it was a future built on hope rather than fear. And that made all the difference. Ambassador Park looked at the stars and thought about Admiral Kane. The old warrior had never lived to see this moment. But she had believed it would come. She had planted seeds that took 300 years to grow. "Thank you," Lisa whispered to the memory of a woman she had never met. "Thank you for having faith in us. For having faith in the galaxy. For believing that people could change." In the darkness of space, a human patrol ship passed close to the border. Commander Sarah Chen, now Admiral Chen, sat in the captain's chair and watched the scanner. A merchant vessel was approaching. Not crossing the border, just passing nearby. The merchant sent a greeting on the common frequency. "Hello, human ship. Beautiful night for flying." Admiral Chen smiled and sent a reply. "Beautiful indeed. Safe travels, friend." The merchant ship continued on its way. No fear. No suspicion. Just two beings acknowledging each other in the vastness of space. Admiral Chen thought about the day she had helped Captain Xerax cross the border. She had not known that one act of mercy would change history. She had simply done what felt right. Sometimes that is all it takes. One person making one choice. One moment of compassion in a galaxy that too often forgets the value of kindness. And sometimes, if you are very lucky, that one choice ripples outward like light through darkness, touching lives you will never know, changing futures you will never see. The galaxy was vast. But it was also full of possibility. And humanity, the species that had once stood alone against impossible odds, now stood with friends. Not subjects. Not servants. Friends. That was worth fighting for. That was worth waiting 300 years for. That was worth everything.